Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the parents or guardians, all 20-some of you, for the class of 2022. The current freshmen. We have some extra sheets and we're going to do some introductions here before we get started. This presentation is being taped by ParkTV, so it can be replayed for families. They can look it up online, which is great. So thanks to them for being here. I'm going to let one of our assistant principals here introduce himself and give a welcome.
So welcome, parents of 2022 again. I finally figured out where I'm at, St. Louis Park. If you remember in the fall, I joked about, I was thinking about my wrestling days as a coach in a different district that starts with SLP too. So, but I finally figured out I'm here at St. Louis Park. So welcome. Again, just want to thank Barb for getting this set up, and Mrs. Nelson, and she'll be turning it over. She stays with the ninth graders. I fortunately follow your ninth graders all the way through, so all the way through graduation. So I'll be their sophomore assistant principal next year. So welcome back. Hopefully this informational meeting for registration will be helpful as your student moves into 10th grade. So welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Goggle-Eye, for being here. And one other introduction, Heidi Cosgrove is one of the other counselors who currently has the seniors, the class of 2019, which means she will come back and loop with your group, pick them up next year as sophomores, and I stay with ninth graders from year to year. So yes, sometimes kids come back and see me say hello, but they will be with Heidi for the next 3 years. Do you want to give your words of wisdom, or do you want to... I'm not sure I want to give the microphone to Heidi, though, because it'll just go on. We always tease her.
This is true. Hi, I'm Heidi Cosgrove. I'm going to be with your students starting next fall. So I'll be the counselor for the class of 2022. I have the seniors right now. They're keeping me on my toes, that's for sure. They're so much fun, and senior year is by far one of my favorite years. It's so much fun to see the kids when I pick them up in 10th grade, and then to see where they're going to be in senior year. It's super fun. If I had to give any words of wisdom for your students picking out classes, I would say for them to pick out what's in their best interest, or what's interesting to them. I know I've heard a lot of sophomores right now talk to the sophomore counselor, and I've heard students say, well, I just picked something. I was hoping to be with a friend, and I did not end up in that class with them. And so now they're kind of scrambling to find a different class, and that's really hard. And sometimes the students get frustrated. I don't blame them. And I think the other piece that I would say is, I know that if students have not taken any honors or AP in 9th grade, which is totally fine, they like to take a dabble in 10th grade and take some time at that. What I would say is that if your student is going to be committed to doing about 2 hours of homework a night in honors or AP classes as a future 10th grader, it's going to be a really, really good fit for them. If doing about 2 hours a night might be a little struggle, they might struggle a little bit in AP and honors classes. I think the other thing that tends to happen in 10th, particularly in 10th and then 11th and 12th, is students feeling stuck on exams. I have heard many, many times students say, I understand it in the homework, I get it when the teacher is lecturing, I totally get it, but then I get to the test and I don't know where this is coming from. So something that happens as students transition to 10th grade, and especially in 11th and 12th, is teachers are no longer testing for memorization. They're testing for understanding. So as your students are maneuvering through 9th grade, making sure that they're really understanding what they're learning and just not memorizing is going to help for even a better transition in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So again, I am a talker. I apologize. So I look forward to working with you as your students come into 10th grade. And I'm sorry, I would usually stick around, but I actually have to go coach 4th grade basketball right now. So that's where I'm heading to. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Heidi. So again, welcome. My name is Barb Nelson. My information is listed up there. So through this process, if you do have questions, feel free to reach out. I'm trying to stay in the light here as I'm being videotaped, so I'll try not to move too much. But so yes, the students now in 9th grade have been really great about reaching out with questions, emailing me, asking about schedule things, whatever it is. So I think if there are things, I would encourage you to have them email me if they do have a question. Through this process, we know it, hopefully kind of if you came as an 8th grade parent family coming into 9th grade, you've heard some of this before. It's kind of a repeat and going through everything again, and there hasn't been a lot that's changed, but we'd just like to review it so you kind of can help your student make the best decisions for them kind of going into registration for the following school year. We do this process about this time every year so the kids kind of get used to the same method. We bring them in high school into the computer labs, go through everything, walk them through the registration process. We've kind of hesitated opening that up where they can just put it into PowerSchool because having that control and getting into the classes or having them come see us in the computer lab is really nice to have that one-on-one time with the groups or the classes and be able to answer their questions. We usually have some of our interns helping us out and do that presentation so they can hear graduation requirements again and kind of know and understand the big picture when they're looking to graduate. So this is kind of the same process. So again, feel free to reach out if there are questions. We really encourage, and typically the classroom teachers of the core subjects are really good about helping advise the kids once they're here, kind of letting them know, yep, this would be a good fit, or nope, you need to maybe think about this if you're going to choose an honors class. So what we actually had done this past week, and I don't know if the students mentioned it or not, but there were elective visits. We've done this a couple years now where usually we try to time it so it's about the week before or kind of during this registration time. The different elective areas came in to visit in the social studies classes. So I sat in on one of them and it was pretty entertaining to just kind of hear what they said about the different classes. It gives kids an idea of all the different things that are available. If they aren't looking online, they heard about it, they got some handouts. So that happened last week, and then they have this next week, or this week, I guess, to be kind of thinking about it. Online, you can look at course descriptions, be able to look up grade levels and, see if there's any questions you have about courses, talk to current teachers, and then it'll be next week that I meet with the students out of their English classes. So they should have heard a little podcast or screencast from me when they got this green sheet. Where I just gave them a brief overview to kind of get them thinking about some things. And then it'll be next week, the week of the 19th through the 22nd, where we bring them in through the computer labs, run through and spend that hour with them getting their course request in the system. So just to review, I know you've seen this before, the graduation requirements. And one change, if you do have a sheet, but this new one will be posted, there's been some clarification or confusion in the past about the electives. So I'm just going to point this out. So right here, we used to have something called pathways classes, and if you can see right here, it just, of the 12 electives that students need of the 46, the pathways, any classes in this career pathways of study, and I'm going to go forward to that graphic so you can just see. A few years back when we started with this program and had an academy structure, or that's where it kind of grew out of, we tried to encourage students to, or tried to have it as a graduation requirement loosely, to have students have 4 of those classes. There are the 5 different content areas up above, and then there were a couple classes kids could take as 9th graders, but the bulk of it fell in 10, 11, 12. We know that if kids were to take a full load of full schedule and have music and world language all the way through, they might not be able to fit some of these in. So we've really just kind of over the years adapted and placed it into the graduation requirement overall, that some kids may have some. It's part of the additional electives they could have, but not necessarily required. We had some kids thinking it was like required, they had to do this, so we just want to clarify that for you, that it's just part of the overall 46 credits they need in that graduation requirement. The biggest thing is looking through each of those, the areas of study that are needed, and if students are taking the typical courses, kind of how our registration sheet is laid out, they are doing exactly what they need to do, and they will be fulfilling these fulfilling the requirements as they go through the 4 years of high school. And all of it is technically college preparatory. It's just to what level you're looking at. If you're wanting to have some more of those advanced or AP or honors courses, that's the selection you take. But our regular English 10, or chemistry now, and social studies, those are all meant to be college prep courses that, as students progress, they don't need to take the honors or AP level courses. They will be just fine getting into colleges with our regular mainstream level courses, just to clarify. So I don't want to spend a ton of time on that. Hopefully you kind of have seen it, over the last couple of years. If there are questions, I can certainly answer those as we go through, but 46 is that magic number. If a student took a full load all the way through, 8 times 7, they could earn 56. So there's, more than enough, more than they need. And students actually, what we start to hear as seniors when students are there is that, well, I've taken all this. So that's why there is that room built in for a schedule. But we also, having credits kind of built up is nice, because I have a lot of families kind of wanting to meet with me now and say, I want my student to graduate early. And I say, hold on, it's not about graduating early. It's about seeing what other opportunities there are in your junior or senior year. Things like post-secondary enrollment options that I'll be talking about. Taking some internship programs. There's some great different things we do for students when they are seniors, juniors and seniors, that they can be part of a Genesis Works program. Some of that's been in the 6425, so lots of different things that there are as opportunities for students. This is just an example of the math pathways, and again, the teachers in the current classes for students will be helping them take a look at where they should be placed next. If there are students, we made the change a few years ago that students went into geometry as 9th graders. If they're struggling in that, some of them may be recommended or encouraged to go into intermediate algebra, so they're going to go back and kind of have a redo of that algebra that they would have had in earlier years. Otherwise, they go into advanced algebra, then on to pre-calculus. Some students are in honors, and again, it's all dependent on kind of where you started and what your pathway might be. So talking to those current teachers would be really helpful in making that best choice. There are going to be on the website, if they aren't posted there now, they were just finalizing kind of pathways in the different content areas. So in English, science, and social studies, you would be able to see this same kind of tracking or pathway, so you can help your students plan accordingly with what they might be interested in taking as they go through. This was embedded health, how students get that health credit. So over the 4 years, they get 0.25 of a credit per year to equal 1 credit by the time they graduate. To finish up with that, they will have the CPR certification when they are a senior. And then all the courses, we worked with someone in our district office. Any of the updates, course descriptions or changes in titles, things like that, were all done, and that should be updated on the website under the 2019-20 student registration. So you can click on that and go in and see a little bit more information and course descriptions. It really, and kind of as Heidi said, it's one of those things where really getting students to think independently. They may want to try to take classes with friends, and we understand that. But at this point, too, there's so much they can explore in high school, so really encourage them to think about, what is it that you're interested in? What is it that you might want to try? Trying to plan for some of those electives, if not, as a 10th grader, going into 11th and 12th, and thinking about the different options they have. This is that pathways of study, and one thing just to mention is there are several courses with little asterisks. It's hard to kind of tell. I don't know. Yeah, there are several classes that have articulation agreements, and what that means is if your student takes a class here and does at or above a certain level, they have the potential to earn college credit. We have articulation agreements with, I believe it's 9 or 10 courses now, and if they were, say, for example, if it was articulated with Normandale or North Hennepin Community College, if they then set foot on that campus and take a class, that other credit can accompany them and go with. Some colleges are even getting to the point there's also something called a concurrent agreement, where it's automatic that you get that credit and can transfer it, and you don't have to go there. So there are some different policies and things in place, and the teachers in those courses would be talking to those students to make sure they understand kind of the grade level requirement in the different courses if they are interested and if they're taking those. So really some great options or opportunities for thinking about kind of those career pathways of study and getting students interested and looking at kind of the career field that they might want to take. In some of the classes, and I know if you do read that 6425 e-newsletter that comes out, they try to have pictures and little stories of the different things going on, and there are some great opportunities in field trips and guest speakers and things happening in a lot of these classes because we have a really great connection with our business advisory group that really is connecting business professionals to the high school and what they're trying to do. So that's really been exciting. Excuse me. Okay, so the official registration sheet, you kind of bump up where it's two-sided. Last year, if you were in our middle school, it was a one-sided pink sheet. We color code them by grade level, so it's a two-sided sheet. The front side, in total, students will have 12 to 14 boxes checked. Just so, again, as a reminder, if it's a two-semester class, you're going to see S1, S2 if it's a full-year course. When you see courses that have one box like this, it just means it's a one-semester course. It could be offered first or second semester. In general, classes like drawing and painting, we switch the curriculum up there. Drawing and painting 1 would be offered semester 1, but there also may be sections of that offered semester 2, depending on the enrollment. We know that it probably feels early to be making these decisions, but we're into second semester. There's a whole process we go through to start looking at staffing and scheduling and hiring teachers and assigning sections to things that the department leads go through. So that's why we start this so early, so then that can be hopefully done and finished up by the end of the school year, and they build a master schedule and work through any schedule issues with students. So on the front side, students are going to have typically 8 choices here. That's their English, social, science, and math. Again, talking to teachers, making decisions about courses, whether or not they want to look at honors in a certain subject. I just got done talking to the incoming 8th grade parents and guardians, and really I would say the same thing to you so you can kind of talk things over with your student, that it's really about balance. We know that students can take a full load of classes, but we always get that age-old question, is it better to have an honors class and get a lower grade, or take a regular class and get a higher grade? And there's really no magic answer to that. It's more about kind of that tipping point, and usually I would say a C+, maybe even a B- now. Like if you're going to get lower than that, probably taking the regular class, because what it does is just lower your GPA overall, right? And so colleges are still looking at test scores, GPA. They look at the courses. They know what we offer. And so you want to do the best courses, take the hardest courses you can do well in, and that's what colleges will say to us. And so I think it's a message for your students to have some balance in that and try to figure out what is most important to them, what do they like, what are they interested in, and what can they handle. Students have a lot of responsibilities now outside of school, whether it's work as they're getting older, athletic activities, other activities, religious groups, things like that. There's all kinds of things that eat up that time besides their lovely phones, but we won't go into that. I have a sophomore myself this year who is at Maple Grove, so we just finished this registration process, and I'm a counselor, and it was confusing to me. So I understand and know that you want to be able to help your student kind of through all the different ins and outs and understand things. So the best way is just, obviously talking to them. They've heard a lot now. All their teachers should be talking to them. They've heard about electives, so have those conversations and kind of rank order. What are the electives they want? Even if they aren't going to take something this year, what could they take next year? So then on this green sheet, then the back side is kind of all those electives. So I think people look at that and, I have to take something out of every box. No, these are just all the options for sophomores. What you need to do is look at what is your option to fulfill 12 to 14 boxes checked overall. If students are doing their 8 on the front, then they would have 6 more on the back. They no longer have like ICL or the Phi Ed class, so there's more options for electives. If they're a student that's going to continue in a world language and music, that eats up, either a full year, 1 full year, or 2 full years of, 2 full years of electives there. So you have your world language here, music here. So you can tell right there that would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. They only have 2 slots then for electives. So it's really about just making sure the numbers kind of work out. If students want to take a full load next year, they certainly can register for that. And in many cases, we encourage them to, because it's a lot easier to drop a class, an elective class, and pick up a study hall, rather than trying to add something later when there might be classes that are full. We ran into that a lot this year. The electives, just the selection of electives and when they were offered was really challenging. And so there were several 9th graders that had 2 study halls, and we tried to work through that as much as we could. Some students liked having that, and that's certainly fine, because again, you can get through and have study halls all the way through if you want to, if you choose to do that, and you still can graduate with enough credits. The other piece on here then is signing off as a student and parent. If kids come without this green sheet signed, I'm still going to have them put their course requests that week of the 19th in. We will collect the sheets just so we have it as kind of our backup. But once everything's put in PowerSchool and submitted, we know it's good. We still are doing that just because it's great, again, like I was saying, for us to have that personal connection. We also will ask them for, on the very bottom of that backside, it has alternate choices. This is really helpful because it'll be Heidi who's actually working with their schedules in the fall next year, but having alternate choices that are actually listed in PowerSchool gives us a way to have a little flexibility if needed, because as schedules get harder and things are tighter, if they're making choices in different elective areas or music or language and things are only offered certain hours, if there's some flexibility with that, we are able to look at their alternates and fit that class in instead. And like I said, it helps us to kind of have an idea of where the interests fall in different areas, because we can take a look at those numbers and see how many kids, if a certain class is closed for whatever reason, then we look to fill with any of those alternate choices. So having your student fill out all of this sheet front and back and bring this with them. Maybe just have them tuck it in their English folder when they're done with it, because that's the class I will see them in either Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday scheduled that week. So I have kind of a teacher a day that I'm kind of seeing through the lab that week, just the way it worked out. So they will bring this with them and be able to we'll run through graduation requirements, answering any questions, having them actually put their course requests right in PowerSchool, which actually, when you open PowerSchool, the parent portal, on the left here, there's a little icon that'll appear when we turn it on. That's class registration. It looks just like this, super easy, where they click on the pencil and then they are able to open up. Oops, I'm going to jump ahead to it. I don't think I put pictures in, sorry. When they open it, it just opens a window that has the class choices for each of those content areas, and then we go through, kind of make sure they walk through that, give them time, and then we check them all before they submit the final registration. What we have done is leave the window open a little bit. Sometimes we shut it off, but at some point it'll be shut off for good, and probably by the early to middle March. And then after that time, it'll be kind of checking in with us if there's a change that needs to be made. We realize sometimes it's hard because a student might struggle in a class and then they need to change a class or course request for next year. Or maybe they, kind of thought, oh, I wanted to take AP and now I'm not going to do that. So we know that there's some of that goes on, but we really hope to have kind of all that stuff finished up and cleaned up by the end of March, because that's really when they start to look at numbers and make decisions about courses and sections and things like that for the following school year. This is a graduation requirement checklist. There are some of these available online, as well as a sheet that looks like this. This is something that's been really helpful, especially as I've gotten to know some ninth graders who are interested in looking at doing a 4-year, well, now it would be a 3-year plan basically, but thinking ahead to kind of 10th, 11th, 12th, laying it out. If they're interested in IB, for example, and doing the IB diploma program, it's helpful to kind of lay out the different courses. And on the back side, there are the different kind of pathways. And like I said, on the website, there's also those pathways laid out, so kids can kind of be doing that a little bit. Generally on this evening tonight, we would have Jenny Magdal who would present as well, and she wasn't able to be here, but there will be 2 videos posted that she's done. If you're not as familiar with International Baccalaureate, there's an overview for freshman parents or incoming freshman parents, and then just an IB overview as well. We have lots and lots of students taking individual IB courses, so you don't have to take the full IB diploma program. You can select an individual course, and the same holds true for AP, Advanced Placement. And if you're wondering kind of what those programs are about, they're more rigorous courses that students have the potential to earn some college credit. So that's where that choice comes in, and having that balance a little bit to be able to say, yep, this seems like a good fit. I know I'm really strong maybe in English, and that's the area I want to do that in. So having some choices or thoughts about that. So here's her information. You can certainly reach out to her. She's actually also a science teacher. She teaches the IB chemistry here and does half-time as the IB coordinator for the high school. So she's great if you do have questions, but those videos are really informative as well. The College and Career Center, this is information that I just wanted to put in here because it's kind of at your fingertips. It's so nice to be able to kind of look on there. Kara Mueller does a great job of keeping that site updated. Even now we're getting tons and tons of summer opportunities, both academically as well as work-related. So for students that might be looking for jobs, there's a link on the College and Career Center website that's a posting or a link to that. And we started trying to put those in the 6425, but it gets so busy, and I think she just has a link that's posted on that electronic newsletter as well. And one thing I wanted to get into for those of you that might be interested, so post-secondary enrollment options is something that, if you haven't heard about, it's being able to take classes at a college, local college or university, at no charge when you're in high school, and you actually end up earning high school credit as well as college credit. It is available for 10th graders, but it's more limited in scope. It's typically when students are juniors and seniors that they would take advantage of it for college credit. So in 10th grade, it's CTE, or Career and Technical Education credits. There's some exploratory, I would say, classes, whereas in 11th and 12th grade, it's more of the college credit earning classes. What we typically do, and this is just a screenshot from the Minnesota Department of Ed, and if you went to their search bar and just put in PSEO, you could get to this, and it lists all the different colleges, and it has links to their PSEO pages. If students are interested in this, there will be some individual there'll be some group meetings that we do. Sometimes we have our interns do those where they go through a PowerPoint with students. And even if your student isn't interested in it next year as a 10th, going into 10th grade, and they just want to hear and learn about it, it's something that would be maybe great to go sit in on those. We will have the new podcast or PowerPoint posted as well once those are prepared, because it's just nice to kind of know if you might be thinking about that, kind of to hear about it and learn about it earlier. I think the PowerPoint that's on there now is just from last year, and information typically doesn't change much from year to year, but if there's any updates, we'll have those done. And so it really is where students can come and listen to it, hear about it. If students are interested in this, so fast forward to next year, if they're interested as a 10th grader going into 11th grade, they still would register as if they were going to come to St. Louis Park High School full-time, pick a full load of classes, and then go to the meetings, go through the process of enrolling, and then it really is, it's all about kind of what happens at the college level. They end up having a meeting with the PSEO office there. They do any of the academic testing. Sometimes they take an AccuPlacer. Sometimes they just look at our high school testing, and then they will do the class selection. And we work with them after they have their college schedule to kind of build their high school schedule out around that. So it's kind of a process, because sometimes the class may be only offered in the morning if they're going to continue, let's say, to take their math and science here, and they need to have that in the morning. We work with them to do that if they have their PSEO classes in the afternoon. So a lot of kind of back and forth that goes into that. And we do have, I would say, I wonder if Heidi would say there's probably at least 20 to 30 kids per grade in their junior and senior year that are taking advantage of this. Maybe just one course, maybe a couple courses, maybe full-time. So it's a great option for those students who maybe high school isn't a good fit, but it's also hard because we do have so many college credit earning options right here in high school. So kids really just need to kind of know what is a good fit for them. And we used to, I'll just go through these last things really quickly and we'll answer any questions. When we have done these presentations in the evenings before, what we started to figure out is, hey, we have parents here. It's a captive audience. Let's talk about kind of post-high school planning. And this is the time as a parent of a 9th grader. I know I have a 10th grader now, so thinking about what are some of those things you're questioning? What are you wondering about? This is just some great information, so I'll buzz through it really quickly. This fall, if your student had ICL first semester, I went through with them how to get into Naviance Student. I'll be doing it for kids in second semester ICL probably after we get through registration in March sometime. So this is on the college and career, or the career and college readiness site, the link to it, but it's Naviance Student. Naviance Student is a college prep website that has interest inventories. The kids did interest inventory in the fall that they did, the career cluster finder. It has all kinds of information about colleges you can look for and compare. Look up any information you want, really in a neat and easy to follow way for students. And this is the one place, so when fast forward to when they're seniors, that if we're still kind of using it as it is right now, all transcripts are sent electronically through Naviance Student. There's barely any that we do mail now. It's all electronic, so everything goes through here. Teacher recommendations go through this program, so they have to kind of get used to using it. There's a lot more that we could be doing with it. It's just hard in terms of staffing and trying to manage kind of all that goes on, and it's hard for us to get into classrooms to have time with students, so we went through the ICL classes and we're able to do that this year. This is just a screenshot of what the homepage looks like, the kind of top of it, and they can go into colleges, careers, about me, and my planner. There's some different tabs or links they click on there. An example of something I shared with them, and these are really interesting, and the kids generally kind of get into it. It's something called a scattergram. They have a handout of some other things, some other sites that they can find scattergrams on that are more up to date, but it kind of gives students an idea. And this is actually St. Louis Park data for students at an ACT. I'm not sure which screenshot I did, but I tend to use like UMD or Mankato, places where we have kids go a lot, and we talk about kind of what the average ACT and GPA are and where students fall, whether they're accepted or denied admission, and what that looks like, what that means. So that's something I kind of go through with them in that session. This was one of the slides that I took from Heidi, who was here before. And again, when you go to her presentation, she'll talk your ear off and go through all this because she loves the college stuff. And this is just a really good thing, kind of looking up what admissions officers review. There are so many pieces that go into that, and it really, colleges are trying to do more of an individual review, but there's still those things that they're going to look at, like I mentioned before, the test scores, the grades, the classes they chose to take. So all of those things are important and a big factor in that decision, but those are all things that will come into play kind of in years to come. But getting your students to kind of look at what are some of the other things that they have control over, their personal accomplishments, volunteering, adding to their resume. If they have a job, what are they doing outside of the school day? Standardized tests. There's a PSAT, ACT, SAT, all these letters that we go through. So the PSAT is typically taken in October of 10th or 11th. 11th is the year when their junior year, when it counts for national merit competition. That's usually only the top 1% of kids across the nation that qualify in that. And it tests critical reading, math, and writing skills. We offer it here. Students have to pay for it, and we schedule that out and get information out in the fall about that test. The ACT test, this is the typical college admission test everybody kind of is aware of. There's this and the SAT. We have offered, and this was through a program through the state, for several years they've offered it free. And then they said, oh, well, you're still going to offer it, but you have to figure out how to pay for it. So we're not really sure how this is going to work, but we're still offering it for students. Typically, if a kid were to take it, a student were to take it on their own, they register online, but there is a statewide testing. We have a February 20th, it's coming up for the current juniors, that they will all take it. We're not sure what will happen for your students, but kind of just keep in tune to that and watch information. The kids are pretty on top of it because they know in advisory they fill out the pre-admission sheets that they have to do. But typically it might be a test that your student take once or more than once. They can test again. And it's kind of funny because when I first started as a counselor, kids always took this in June. Now we're backed up at you. Then it was April, then it was February. So kids are taking this earlier and earlier, which is so hard because it's really a test on what you've learned about. And so why wouldn't you want to have as much math and science? But I get it. Everyone wants to know how they're going to do. So just know that it's kind of that, April is a good time frame. We've, done this February test just because we have a window that we have to do per the state. But they can retest again if there is, if they want to see if they can better their score. And generally, colleges will, take their best score in any of the subtests as they're applying to colleges in the fall. And then the SAT is run typically, again, something you would take in the spring of 11th grade. There are SAT subject tests that schools, highly selective schools, would require. This is run through the College Board. They are also the program that oversees AP testing. So once, if a student has taken an AP test, they're kind of in that system and can register online through College Board for SAT. We will have a college fair coming up. The ninth graders have a short opportunity, and it's a really good exposure for them to see the different college admissions reps. So we really only have them go about 20, 25 minutes, but it's nice exposure for them to kind of see that. That'll be on March 13th, 9 to 10:30. You're welcome to join us. There should be information coming out soon about that in the 6425 news. And then the career fair is April 24th. That'll be during advisory. That is a super fun day. We have careers. People come in from all different career areas, and the kids get to talk to them. A lot of the people are great about having interactive booths, and they really get the students kind of thinking about and interested in the different career areas, which is fun. And then there is that, I mentioned it earlier, there's a Pathways Advisory Board. So teachers and staff work with business professionals and make those connections, and it's been fabulous for all the different areas of study we have here. And they're trying to have a resource pool where if a teacher wants a guest speaker, they have this list to kind of call on. So Kara Mueller coordinates that, the college and career coordinator. So certainly if that's something that you can provide or have some interest in, reach out to her and get connected, because it's a great way to kind of work with the high school. So if there are questions, I can take kind of right now, and I'll just try to repeat the question, because if it's something that maybe is applicable for everyone, I'm happy to answer that. My email and number is up there, so you can feel free to email me directly if something is in question, or encourage your student to come and see me or email me. What usually happens when I give these out to students is I get this mad rush of like, oh, you need to answer my questions now. And this year we built it out so we had kind of a couple weeks in between, which is nice. So I have been seeing students and talking to them about different options. But teachers are great resources. We're happy to be around, and we'll be with them in the lab. And again, if there's anything that needs to be kind of slightly tweaked after we meet with them, that's certainly something we can do. So are there questions anyone has? Yeah. Yep, the graduation requirements and that long-term plan. The sheets, if they're not, I'll talk to Matt Thomas, because we had, he always like shuts stuff off and then we turn it back on. But on that same, on their website, under the 2019-20, there should be a place that'll have graduation, one is graduation requirements, but there's also a place where the sheets. So all of our sheets will be put up there that you can run off, as well as that planning sheet will be there too. I'll make a note to talk to him tomorrow if it's not there. Under students, and then 2019-20 registration is where you can find it on the high school website. So not the district one, make sure you're on the high school page, and then that pull down under students. She's asking about homework and how much time, and Heidi mentioned the 2 hours. I would say, if you're taking more than 1 or 2 classes, that ups the ante a little bit, and maybe 2 to 3 hours. Some students who are just taking one course, they're going to be fine in, half hour, to an hour. And it's so dependent, because I've had kids who, in 9th grade breeze through there in all honors, and they, can get through it, and other kids are spending 4 hours a night. So your student, the intensity. That's where they can ask those teachers specifically, what to expect in each of the different content areas. I know, for example, like in honors English, it's high reading, high writing. In the AP social studies area, there's a lot of reading and note-taking that goes into that. So those things, depending on how long that takes your student, is what eats up their time kind of in those evening hours, making sure they're staying on track and up to date with that reading. in 10th grade, they're selecting between regular English 10, honors English 10. There isn't any really other choices besides that. It's kind of a little misleading. So the world history, AP World, or AP Euro are typically the ones most students would select from. I know there's kind of a line she was asking. She's asking about those IB videos. I just talked to Matt Thomas today, who works with us through district office. So under the 2019-20 registration, there should be a link and it'll say videos. And if you click on that, the IB information will be listed there. Great. Yep. She's asking about IB chemistry. And so that is the only class that's out of junior and senior year for the IB program, okay? So if students are interested and they are thinking they might want to do the IB diploma, they would likely want to take IB chemistry. Now, IB likes to have what they call concurrency of learning, so over 2 school years, and they like to have longer classes. So it really is, if you are interested in taking IB chemistry, it actually is a 3-semester course. So students would take it over their sophomore year and 1 semester into their junior year, which, they're going to be taking biology probably at the same time. So they typically overlap for 1 semester in their junior year, again, if they're wanting to take the IB, the full IB curriculum. Now, what I've asked Jenny Magdal about that is, if students want to take a higher level chemistry, is it better for them to just take the 2 of the 3 semesters? And she said yes, because they get exposed to organic chemistry, which is more like the chemistry they're going to see in college. Even if they don't go on to that 3rd semester, having the 1 year of IB chemistry on their transcript is still going to, they're going to know what that means, that they took the 1 year of it. But if they don't complete that 3rd semester, they wouldn't be able to or be prepared to go on to take the IB exam, which they can take at the end of their junior year. So that's kind of, and it's hard. They struggled with this back and forth, but there are some courses in IB. Typically, they're 1 year or 2 years. The higher level courses are over their junior and senior year, but that is one course that it ends up being 3 semesters. There's another course called IB Film. That's an elective that does that as well. They can do it 1 year and then 1 more semester. Yeah. She's asking about Tonka Online and that 3rd semester. From what I even just was looking at today, online courses there are $325, and that would be out of pocket because we don't pay for online courses during the summer, but might be a nice option if that families can afford to do that, so it's not so stressful on students. They still, however, could not take that test till the end of their junior year. IB, right? So she's kind of asking about, there's some AP, some IB, but some are more concentrated. And it's been an interesting, having been here this long, I can kind of speak to this because when we first started the IB program at St. Louis Park, in the high school anyway, the thought was that they could do a lot of these courses concurrently. And as they went along, what they found is that the curriculum doesn't always match up, and it was actually pretty divergent in some cases. So what happens a lot of times is students on their own will take an IB course but do the preparation and sign up to take the AP test, like in AP Chemistry or AP Biology. I don't know how much that's happening now as much, and maybe the teachers could answer that a little bit more. If you were to go to the College Board website that oversees the AP program, you can look at a course description for AP Biology, any of the courses, and see how much of a overlap there is. I know I'm trying to think of some of the other courses, and for us, it's just happened kind of organically that social studies was the area where we kept more AP courses, and then as the IB program grew and kind of finalized, there was we had to, for example, in English, they used to try to have an AP composition course, or there was an AP English, and we just couldn't sustain because with realistically, at that time, our school is even less, but, let's say we're going to end up having about 1,500, 1,600 students. We don't have enough students to populate every level, so they had to make some really hard choices, and because we were committed to the IB diploma program, that's where the commitment was to those IB courses. So that being said, they're good courses, they're strong courses, it's just that's the choice or the option if you do want to do a higher level. But know that places like Tonka Online have great programming, but it's just different when you're doing an online course versus being in a class every day with a teacher. But if that is a fit for your student, if they don't do a full load here, they can take an online course during the school year without having to pay for it. I'm sure they wouldn't like that. I'm sorry. But that's the reality of schools now. There's more choice, there's more options, but you just can never be more than a full-time student in a semester because there's just they don't give us extra money for that. Like you have X amount, your per pupil funding, and so that formula just is based on kind of how many classes a student is taking, if that makes sense. So hopefully that answered that. I know it's a little tricky, but there are many students that go through St. Louis Park High School and pick and choose from both AP and IB and do fantastic. They have such a good baseline for going into college. They pick and choose classes they're interested in and really kind of challenge themselves in areas that they like and are able to. So that's the nice part about it, I think. And two, like AP and IB are different in terms of their approaches, and so it's also helpful to give students different views when taking those courses. So hopefully that was helpful. Any other questions I can answer? Yeah. The intro would be teacher recommendation typically, and it's for students who have struggled in science. So regular chemistry, if there hasn't been any concern in level, would be the regular class that students would take. We've left intro, and then going into 11th grade, life science as an option. So it's, again, kind of a little bit easier reading level and things like that in the sciences area. Yeah. She's kind of asking a complicated math question. And part of it is, I'm going to go back if I can get quickly to the math sequencing. I think you were saying like if they're in advanced algebra, they typically would never do that jump. And I think if you're looking at is that what you were asking? Like most students are going to go from if they're in regular advanced algebra, the honors class. So in honors, if they're making that jump, they are typically doing pre-calc within that class. And some kids, because if they're going to go for the IB diploma, they want to hold off and get that math class because they have to do that junior and senior year. They'll put AP stats in there and then be able to take the, basically, here it is. So it's kind of confusing because you'll go here and here if you've already been in honors advanced algebra, but basically I'm trying to figure out what the best description or way. So if you're in honors they're in honors right now, then doing the year pre-calculus is the IB-SL analysis year 1, and if you're going into year 2, they will sometimes do the AP stats first so they can do those back to back and have that within 2 years is what I would have your student double check with their math teacher. This whole IB sequencing for math just changed this year. They added this math analysis course to it. So that's where there's been some confusion. And I know there was a publication put out to the middle school that was very different than what this looks like. And this is a little bit more streamlined. So I apologize for not knowing it as well as I need to, but it's kind of some changes and updates as things have happened this fall. All right. Well, I appreciate it, you guys. I know we're getting to that time point where it's a little after 7, and so I hope you got some good information, can help your students make good decisions, and I'll stick around for a minute if you have individual questions, but definitely have students talk to current teachers, and I'll leave my information up here if you need to contact me, but I appreciate you coming in, and drive safe. We'll look forward to seeing your students in another week or so 2 weeks basically to get them registered for next year. Have a good night.